You're a stranger to me. If you want to come in, the entrance fee is $30,000. It was Lynn's important wedding day. Dressed in jewelry and clothes I wouldn't normally wear, and wearing heels I wasn't used to, I headed to the venue. However, Lynn didn't let me into the venue easily. Suddenly, I was confused when asked to pay an entrance fee. Seeing my confusion, Tom, who was standing next to me, muttered a single phrase. "Let's go back," he whispered. At that moment, I could feel the tension leaving my body. Considering how I had been treated so far, I realized there was no need to persuade her just to attend the wedding. That thought crossed my mind. Yes. And with that, I accepted Tom's suggestion and left the venue. As we were leaving, I caught a glimpse of Lynn, looking triumphant. When will her character ever improve? Maybe it never will. Was I even right to try to interfere in Lynn's life? Such thoughts clouded my mind. 3 minutes after leaving the venue, my phone rang unexpectedly. It was Lynn. I wondered what she wanted as I answered the call. Little did I know at the time that this incident would escalate into something much bigger. My name is Mary Nelson. I'm 43 years old. After graduating from college, I moved away from my hometown to work as an office worker at a construction company. Since my college days, I had always felt a sense of dread about entering the workforce. Just before joining the company, I was filled with various concerns, like whether I could handle the job or build good relationships with others. But the work environment was pleasant, and my colleagues were all kind, which soon dispelled my anxieties. Supported by my bosses, seniors, and peers, I was able to take my first step as a working professional. Every day was about getting through work while being helped by those around me. Of course, there were times when I got scolded or felt down, but I think I was able to continue working because of the positive work environment. After a few years on the job, I even had juniors, and my life had become busier yet more enjoyable than before. However, I began to face a personal issue. It was about not being able to get married. Actually, not just about getting married. I didn't even have a boyfriend. Some colleagues who joined the company after me got married. I often found myself unable to sincerely say, "Congratulations on your wedding." Would I remain single forever, left behind as everyone else got married? My mind was haunted by the worst possible outcomes, and I would often feel down alone. Then one day, I was invited to a mixer by a colleague. I was probably just there to make up the numbers or to make others look good. I could foresee feeling miserable if I went. But for some reason, I wanted to show my face there. On the day of the mixer, when I arrived at the designated place, some participants had already formed their own little groups. I found an empty seat and sat down, waiting for the mixer to start. I had a faint hope that something might change once it began. But my hope was quickly dashed. Even after the mixer started, the other participants were enjoying their own conversations. It seemed like I wasn't even in their line of sight. Before I knew it, my mind was filled with thoughts of how and when I could make excuses to leave. However, about an hour into the mixer, a man approached me. That man would later become my husband, Tom. "Is this seat taken?" "Yes." I couldn't respond well to his sudden approach, but Tom didn't seem to mind. "We've already introduced ourselves, so we know each other's names." "Mary, right? I noticed you were alone the whole time." "Oh, no, you didn't have to worry about me." Tom gave a light smile and took a sip from his glass. Come to think of it, Tom seemed to be drinking alone too. As I was vaguely thinking about this, Tom began to speak up. "I was drinking alone too, so I thought it would be nice to have someone to talk to." "Yes, I'd like that." It might not be the best way to say it, but we were like two leftovers. Maybe that's why, but somehow our wavelengths matched, and it felt comfortable talking to him. Before I knew it, the mixer, which had felt so long, was about to end. "It's almost over." As I was thinking I didn't want it to end, he made a suggestion. "Would you like to exchange contact information? I'd like to see you again if you're okay with it, Mary." Oh, yes, of course. I was so surprised to be asked for my contact information that I blurted out an absurdly loud response. But the thought of having another chance to meet him. I quickly took out my smartphone and we exchanged contact details. After that, Tom and I started to meet frequently. And over the course of a few months, we progressed from friends to a romantic relationship. I had always hoped to have a boyfriend someday, but I never imagined that a guy I met at a mixer would become my boyfriend. With every date, my feelings for Tom grew stronger. I just felt happy being with Tom, and I often hoped he felt the same way about me. I wished this time could go on forever. Eventually, I even started to hope that maybe, just maybe, I could marry Tom. 6 months into this lifestyle. While talking with Tom as usual, he suddenly looked troubled. What's wrong? Well, there's something I want to talk about. Tom took a deep breath and started to speak. What he told me was shocking. Tom revealed something surprising: he had been divorced once before. And apparently, he has a child named Lynn. But Lynn isn't his biological child nor his ex-wife's. They had adopted Lynn together during their marriage. However, following a particular argument, their marriage fell apart. Eventually, they got divorced. And since his ex-wife lost interest in Lynn, Tom took her in and has been raising her alone. He hasn't yet told her about this situation. He plans to tell Lynn when she becomes an adult. I should have mentioned this earlier. It must be a shock to hear this all of a sudden. Well, I was indeed surprised. But it didn't make me want to leave Tom. In fact, I wanted to help Tom raise Lynn. I thought about it. I'm serious about our future together, Mary. That's why I needed to tell you this. If this disappoints you, I'd understand. Disappointed? I'm happy you shared this with me, and I love everything about you, Tom. I want to be with you and share our lives together. When I shared my feelings, Tom's face lit up. Really? Of course. I wouldn't lie about this. Thank goodness. Thank you. Then, Tom shared more about Lynn. His expression was much softer than the tense one he had before. Would you like to meet Lynn? I think you'll be living together with us eventually. He looked down, slightly embarrassed as he muttered. Yes. I'd love to meet her. There was no reason for me to decline. I nodded with a smile. A week later, I visited Tom's house and met Lynn for the first time. Hello. Hello. After a brief introduction, Tom led the conversation. Lynn didn't look at me much. She wasn't on her phone, but she kept looking at the floor or the walls, never meeting my eyes. What's wrong? You seem off. Do I? It's nothing. Even after that, Lynn didn't look at me. Lynn, you're in middle school now, right? Well, Despite my attempts to engage her, her responses were somewhat indifferent. It's a tricky age, and maybe she doesn't want to talk to her father's girlfriend. Sensing that, I didn't push for communication. Then, 30 minutes later, when Tom went to the bathroom, Lynn, who seemed uninterested in me until now, suddenly started a conversation. Hey, are you gonna marry my dad? Well, we've been talking about it, yes. There was no need to lie. I honestly shared that I was considering marriage. Lynn then scrutinized me and snorted with laughter. You and my dad, huh? I guess it's okay, but Dad has terrible taste in women. Couldn't he find someone better? Excuse me? I was taken aback by her words and had to ask again. Why are you so surprised? I'm just saying what I think. It would have been nice if he dated someone prettier, then he could have bragged about it. Well, I hadn't expected such comments at our first meeting, and I struggled to respond. No matter what Lynn says, my desire to marry Tom hasn't changed. But can we live together harmoniously? Can I really be a good mother to her? My anxiety about our future life only grew. A year after meeting Lynn, Tom and I got married. Even though we had been meeting Lynn during that time, it seemed she still didn't like me. Her looks and attitudes, all seeming to find me annoying, bewildered me. Tom seemed troubled too. No matter how much he cautioned her, she wouldn't listen. He had apologized to me several times for Lynn's behavior. "I'm really sorry. I never imagined Lynn would be rude to you too." "It's okay, don't worry about it." Indeed, some of the things Lynn said were hurtful. But that never made me think of stopping the marriage. I vaguely hoped Lynn would calm down eventually. However, my wish didn't come true. 2 years after marrying Tom, Lynn had become more unruly than I could have ever imagined. "Hey! I want my allowance." "I just gave it to you." "What are you spending it on?" "Socializing with friends." "And, by the way, isn't my allowance too little? My friends get more." I was sure I was giving Lynn enough allowance. Yet, she claimed it wasn't enough. "Talking about luxuries. No means no. You're so useless." Lynn had been frequently hanging out with friends since middle school. The frequency increased in high school, and so did her demands for more allowance. "Seriously unbelievable. How dare you act like a mother when you're not even related by blood?" "What do you mean by acting like a mother? I may not be related by blood, but I am your mother now." Maybe I was a bit harsh. But Lynn wouldn't listen otherwise. "I'm so irritated. Getting all high and mighty. Who do you think you are, saying you're my mother?" No matter how much I tried, Lynn continued to say hurtful things to me. It's okay if she doesn't accept me as her mother, but this is a different matter. "Regardless of what you say, the fact is that I am your mother." "You just repeat the same thing. This isn't going anywhere." It's always like this. Lynn leaves before we can resolve our discussions. And the next day, we go through the same back and forth. I could understand if she only ignored what I said, but Lynn didn't listen to Tom either. "Hey, Lynn! Enough is enough. Don't trouble your mom like that." "What mom? She's just a stranger." "A stranger. I don't need to listen to her." "Lynn." Her grades had significantly dropped since middle school. Her behavior had worsened. I felt overwhelmed by everything. At first, I thought it was just her age, but now that she's in high school, I'm seriously worried about her future. But now that her personality is formed, I couldn't do much about Lynn. "Hey! Give me my allowance. Now. I just gave it to you. When did you spend it? What does it matter what I use it for? Haven't I told you before? I need it for hanging out with friends." "What, you think it's okay for me to be left out?" Lynn always used her social life as a shield whenever her allowance was denied. "That's an extreme." "It's not extreme. You just don't understand at all." Where did I go wrong? I hate my past self for not being able to deal with Lynn properly. Even though she hasn't liked me from the beginning, maybe there was something more I could have done. Every time Lynn said something cruel, I felt not anger, but a sense of failure. 3 years later, Lynn, having graduated from high school, wasn't studying or working and was leading a lazy life. She often stayed home all day, but also went out whimsically. No matter how much I advised her, my words never seemed to reach her. "Waking up at this time again. Can't you start getting your act together?" "What do you mean by properly?" I need specifics to understand. What I mean by a proper life is so annoying. Don't bother explaining, it's such a hassle. Lynn interrupted me and started getting ready to go somewhere. Where are you going today? Does it matter? I'm an adult now. It's none of your business where I go or what I do. But, oh, so irritating. Oh, that's right. Give me some pocket money. When she was a student, I used to give her an allowance. Even beyond the set amount, she'd frequently beg for more. I regret spoiling her too much. But now, Lynn is a high school graduate. I wish she'd take care of her own finances, whether through a job or something else. If you claim to be an adult, at least earn your own money for leisure. God, you're so annoying. My plea never reached Lynn. Instead, she shocked me with her revelation. I don't need to work anymore. What? What do you mean? Surely you're not planning to. I can't stay in this house forever. I'm getting married. My husband said it's okay for me to be a stay-at-home wife, so I don't need to work. I was hearing this for the first time. My mouth fell open in shock. Marriage! I had no idea. Well, I'm telling you now. Lynn was grinning, oblivious to my feelings. Surely, marriage requires proper preparation and introductions, doesn't it? If you've decided, you should have told us sooner. Who is he? What does he do? Don't ask so much. I could bring him over sometime. Really? Please do. I couldn't believe Lynn was offering to introduce her fiancé herself. I was surprised, but I gladly accepted her proposal. That evening, I shared with Tom what I had discussed with Lynn during the day. Initially surprised, he soon had a look of relief on his face and murmured, "So, she's getting married, huh?" Despite not being related by blood, he had raised her with care, and she was no less important to him. It must have been a moment filled with deep emotions for him. After pondering for a while, Tom's gaze fell on the newspaper, appearing somewhat lonely. Later on, Lynn, as promised, brought her fiancé over. Nice to meet you. I'm Ricky. His voice was clear and behavior was confident. They gave me the impression of a genuinely nice young man. Ricky works in sales at a major trading company. He met Lynn during high school, fell in love at first sight, and has been together ever since. It was such a heartwarming story that it made me smile. Lynn, too, seemed to have a softer expression than usual. An hour later, the greetings concluded, and Lynn left the house with Ricky. She had met a wonderful person. The fact that Lynn had treated me harshly hadn't changed, and I had no intention of forgiving her. Yet, seeing her smile somehow made me feel relieved and brought a smile to my face as well. A year later, the day of Lynn and Ricky's wedding arrived. I was overjoyed to be able to see Lynn in her bridal attire. I prepared myself, my heart racing with excitement. Dressed in jewelry and clothes I don't usually wear, and high-heeled pumps, I headed to the wedding venue. I couldn't help but notice Tom's hands seemed to tremble as he drove. Was it from excitement or nervousness? Probably both. Both gave how much he was looking forward to this wedding. Upon arriving at the venue and entering, there were luxurious chandeliers and decorations, and I couldn't help but be dazzled, no matter my age. I've been to friends' and acquaintances' weddings at places like this before, but the awe never fades, no matter how many times I experience it. Oh, you're here. Lynn approached us as we were looking around the venue. It seemed she had been waiting for us. How are things going? Never mind that. Lynn didn't answer my question but pointed at me and said, "You're a stranger to me. If you want to come in, the entrance fee is $30,000. I was at a loss for words. I hadn't expected her to treat me with such disdain here. Seeing my confusion, Tom, who was standing next to me, spoke up. Let's go. At that moment, I felt the tension leave my body. Indeed, I had been looking forward to the wedding. However, the harassment from Lynn hadn't changed. Was there a need to force myself to attend the wedding of someone who had been hostile toward me? Lynn's words had rapidly cooled my enthusiasm for the wedding. Yes. I accepted Tom's suggestion and left the venue. As we were leaving, Lynn's triumphant expression caught my eye. We exited the venue and got into the car. There was a heavy silence between Tom and me. Neither of us have the energy to talk or find a topic to discuss. I was overwhelmed by a sense of futility and let out an involuntary sigh. Did happiness just slip away again? While I was lost in thought, about 3 minutes after leaving the venue, my phone rang. Lynn's name was displayed on the screen. Why would she call after sending us away? As I hesitated, the call ended abruptly. But then it rang again. Call after call came in, only to be disconnected by her. It was a perplexing sight. And then, on the next call, I cautiously answered. That moment. Hey! Come back quickly! Lynn's voice pierced my ear. What? What's this all about? Just come back. How can I? We're already on our way home, and besides, after you told us to leave, now you want us back? Ricky got angry at me. Why did you send your own parents away? He asked. Hey, come back quickly. Lynn's self-centeredness was astonishing. Did she really think a plea would make us return? What? You want us back because you got scolded? Just forget all that. Just come back. The wedding will be ruined if it goes on like this. Lynn pleaded in a teary voice. However, her voice didn't move me. You shouldn't have said strange things in the first place. What's this about a $30,000 entrance fee? Then, at least ask Dad to come back. Lynn's voice was so loud that Tom, who was driving, could hear the conversation. There's no way we're going back. What are you talking about? Neither Dad nor Mom is coming back, so deal with it yourself. Mom, you can hang up the phone. I did as Tom suggested and hung up the phone. Lynn was making a fuss until the very end, but I ignored it. After hanging up, I immediately put my phone in my bag. When I checked my phone after getting home, as expected, there were several missed calls. All from Lynn, of course. The number easily exceeded 20, and I couldn't help but laugh at her desperation. The calls had stopped abruptly a few minutes earlier, perhaps she had finally given up. Ultimately, there was no contact from Lynn for the rest of the day. Nor the following day, nor the day after. She must have been scolded severely by Ricky and had no desire to contact us. We also had no inclination to reach out to her, leaving things as they were. However, a week later, Lynn suddenly showed up at our house. Seeing how angry she looked, I didn't dare let her in, fearing what she might do. I decided to deal with her at the entrance. What's up? Why are you here all of a sudden? Why didn't you come to the wedding? I asked you so much. Why would we? I called you so many times, and you didn't pick up. Ricky was really angry, and I got cold looks from his relatives. What are you going to do about it? It's astonishing how self-centered she is. I sighed and responded to Lynn. We did nothing wrong. We left because you started talking about an entrance fee. And we didn't want to come back because, honestly, it's because of how you've acted all this time. My past behavior? Lynn tilted her head, seemingly unaware of her actions. Doesn't she realize what she's been doing? It's more concerning than infuriating. You ignored us, went out to play, kept asking for money. You throw a tantrum over just a bit of scolding and lock yourself in your room. At first, we tolerated it because we thought you were just going through a phase, but we all have our limits. Huh? That issue? Can you please not refer to it as a tantrum? It makes me sound like a child. If you're asking me to stop, does that mean you acknowledge that your behavior warranted such a description? If it didn't, you would deny it. I seized the opportunity to counter. I saw the opportunity and took it. If I let it pass, who knows when we'll get the chance to talk face to face again. That's what I thought. However, Lynn deflected my response and changed the subject. Even after all these years, your know-it-all attitude really gets on my nerves. After all, you're a stranger to me. Stop trying to boss me around. If that's the case, then as a stranger, you shouldn't be asking me for money, right? Got it? Lynn looked at me with a face full of resentment. Obviously frustrated at not being able to retort. Enough. I don't care about you anymore. Just go away. Okay, then. Bye. As Lynn stormed off with her parting shot, I felt an unexpected sense of relief. For the first time, I had conveyed my thoughts so directly, and it felt liberating. Now, for the time being. She might not come barging in anymore. That moment made me realize. True enough, she didn't return. But soon I encountered something unexpected. A month after Lynn's last visit, I met Ricky downtown. Hello, Ricky. I felt it necessary to apologize for the wedding incident, so I initiated a conversation. Sorry about the trouble during the wedding. I got entangled in our family drama. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Lynn was at fault, after all. But Ricky seemed uneasy. As if my approach caught him off guard. Is everything okay? Oh, are you busy? I'm sorry. I'll leave then. No, it's not that. Just, have you been discharged from the hospital? Discharged? Huh? It seemed that Ricky had been informed by Lynn that I was hospitalized. I'm sorry. I wanted to apologize for the wedding stuff, but I was told you were hospitalized and couldn't be contacted, and that no one except your father and Lynn could visit you. Hospitalized? Why would they say I was hospitalized? Yes. So, I didn't expect to meet you here. I'm sorry, I must have seemed rude. No, not at all. You've done nothing wrong. I conveyed my thoughts to Ricky, despite being puzzled. Ricky's expression softened slightly at my words. But why would she lie about you being hospitalized? Indeed, why would she lie about such a thing? What was Lynn trying to achieve? Recalling the tumultuous past, I desperately thought of what Lynn might have planned. What Lynn tends to think. Oh. Maybe. A thought suddenly struck me. I couldn't be sure if I was right, but decided to share it with Ricky as one possibility. Maybe she didn't want to be scolded by you? Didn't want to be scolded? I heard from her that you were quite angry about the wedding incident, right? Maybe she said something to garner sympathy, thinking that even someone angry would soften if they heard her parents were hospitalized. Does that make sense? I see. When I suggested a possible reason, Ricky seemed to understand. Indeed, after the wedding, I was so angry that I barely spoke to her. Hearing that her mother was hospitalized made me feel like continuing to be angry was wrong. Ah. I fell right into Lynn's trap, didn't I? How embarrassing. Ricky frowned. He was clearly upset about being deceived. What should I say to comfort him? As I was pondering, Ricky spoke up again. But, if that's the case, then why? What's wrong? Ricky looked even more perplexed than when he first saw me. Curious, I asked for more details. Lately, Lynn has been saying she's going to visit you in the hospital, leaving the house often. She says she's staying at her parents' house because her dad is lonely. Back home? But she hasn't been there. At that moment, the worst-case scenario flashed through my mind. Should I tell Ricky, or should I keep quiet? No, I definitely need to say something. He must have realized it himself by now. Could it be that she's not cheating, is she? Yeah, you think so too, don't you? It's just not possible that she's staying at a friend's house so often. Ricky's face turned pale rapidly. The lies he had been told, the possibility of infidelity. How his feelings towards Lynn might have changed in these few minutes. I can't be certain, but it's clear they're not positive. Should consider hiring a detective agency for an investigation. Not forcing you, but that was the best advice I could offer. Having evidence would never hurt. Whether to divorce or not is up to Ricky. He doesn't need to rush, he should take his time to decide. Later, Ricky, after a moment of contemplation, said with determination, "Thank you. I'll consult with a detective agency." His eyes showed resolve, yet also a hint of sadness. 2 weeks later, I received a call from Ricky. According to the detective agency's investigation, it was confirmed that Lynn was cheating. He sounded exhausted just by his voice, having been shown overwhelming evidence. But cheating. It was just a speculation, yet facing the reality was painful. I'm so sorry. for my daughter causing such trouble. It's okay. Struggling to find the right words for the disheartened man, I could sense Ricky taking a deep breath. And he said, I'm going to divorce her. Is that okay? Of course. I have no right to stop Ricky's decision. Especially when my daughter is the cause of his trouble. Ricky mentioned he wanted to have a discussion, including us. He could have gone through a lawyer, but he wanted to hear everything straight from the source first. There was no way to refuse. I, too, wanted to hear Lynn's side of the story. So, we scheduled the meeting for a week later and ended the call. What would happen next? Would Lynn admit to her actions? Overwhelmed by anxiety, I sank into the nearby sofa to escape my thoughts. A week later, Tom, Ricky, a sullen Lynn, and I were all gathered in my house. What's this about? I have plans, you know. Lynn said, lounging back dismissively. You could have discussed whatever you wanted without dragging me here, couldn't you? Couldn't you two have talked alone? Didn't want to? It's not like that. We wanted your parents to be involved too. I said I didn't want to, but you went ahead anyway. How selfish. The last thing I wanted was to be called selfish by Lynn. I was not the only one who thought so. But Ricky, unfazed, just nodded. So, what is it? Hurry up, I'm doing you a favor by being here. Lynn said, clapping her hands impatiently. Look, Lynn. We should get a divorce. Ricky said, silencing the room. Lynn seemed unable to comprehend what was being said to her. What? Divorce? Why? I don't have the confidence to continue with you. You're selfish, spend too much. I haven't been selfish or anything. It's not just that. Ricky continued, pulling out a stack of documents. You've been cheating, haven't you? I had a detective investigate. What? A detective? That's so low. Instead of denying the cheating, her reaction to the detective indicated something guilt-ridden. And didn't you wonder? Why is your supposedly hospitalized mother-in-law here? Didn't you find that strange? Oh. Lynn might have spun a web of lies too vast for her own comprehension. Seeing me, her face turned pale. Mom, why are you here? How about you stop acting so innocent? And now you call me Mom. Listen, I know about the lie you told Ricky that I was hospitalized, about your so-called visits to your affair partner under the guise of visiting me, and about staying at your parents' home because Dad was lonely. That's... Lynn's face was a picture of despair. Had she truly believed her lies would never be uncovered? And just so you know, I was the one who suggested Ricky consult a detective agency. What? Why would you suggest such a thing? I'm your daughter, aren't I? Couldn't you have taken my side for once? I'm your daughter, you say? But we're legally strangers, right? So, I'm not your mother or anything, am I? It's too late to start calling me Mom now. That's exactly why you're seen as selfish. Lynn always tried to manipulate situations to her advantage. I couldn't be manipulated by her any longer. Enough. Everyone is just the worst. Why do you all treat me so horribly? Have you ever considered my feelings? I could say the same to you. The reason things have come to this is that you've lived your life however you pleased. I used to love Lynn and tolerated her whims. But after being lied to and cheated on, I can't trust her anymore, nor do I want to continue living with her. All I want now is a divorce. Divorce. Though a normal request under these circumstances, Lynn seemed unable to comprehend. Why? Of course. You have to pay for what you've done. No. Absolutely not. Lynn began to throw a tantrum, as usual. I've done nothing wrong. Yes, I cheated. But ultimately, it's Ricky's fault. Me. Ricky was shocked by the sudden accusation. But the reason she gave was also selfish. You weren't attractive enough. Boring to be with. I wanted to break up, really. But then you landed a good job, so I thought there might be some financial benefits. Really now? I almost leaned in, angered by Lynn's words. But I reminded myself that this was between Lynn and Ricky and held back. So, you propose, and now you want a divorce and alimony? Do you think I, a housewife, have money? Weren't you the one who said it was okay for me to be a stay-at-home wife? You should take responsibility and support me for life. You only see me for my money, don't you? Of course. I can't see you as a man anymore, so I'll continue my relationship with my boyfriend. I was appalled by her cruel words. And I felt a sense of despair. But then... oh. Lynn had a sudden change of heart. I'll agree to the divorce. Really? What sudden change is this? I looked up to see Lynn wearing an eerily bright smile as she looked at Tom. Hey, Dad. Can you give me money? What? You're not a stranger, but Dad isn't. You'll surely take my side, right? Please, Dad, for your cute daughter. Lynn approached Tom with a cajoling tone. That scene was unbearably vile. All eyes turned to Tom, who had been silent since Ricky and the others arrived. What decision would he make? I can't do that. Why not? Because I'm not your real father. You're adopted. By your logic, we're not related by blood, so we're strangers. The atmosphere froze. Not just Lynn, but Ricky's face also stiffened. Also, hearing everything, how can you say you've done nothing wrong after living so selfishly? I raised you, hoping you'd become a kind person, even if we're not related by blood. This has to be a lie. You're just saying this because you don't want to pay the alimony, right? I know it. It makes no sense for me to lie now. Unlike you. Anyway, neither your mother nor I will help you. It's a good chance to dissolve the adoption. From now on, you're on your own. I saw tears fall from Lynn's eyes. Please, don't abandon me. I can't suddenly live on my own. Mom, Ricky, say something. Sorry, but I agree with Dad. You can't just use us when you're in trouble. You've caused enough trouble, so now it's time to handle things yourself. Lynn turned to Ricky, seeking support. Ricky, you're on my side, right? No. I can't live with you anymore. It's sad not knowing your real parents, but if I stay with you, I'll ruin myself too. Please, someone. Don't abandon me. I admit I was wrong. I'll change, I promise. Usually, Lynn's tantrums would get her what she wanted, but not today. She was crying and repeating that she was at fault. But all her words sounded like lies. Surely, once things settle down, she'll likely return to her usual self-indulgent ways. We all watched Lynn silently until she agreed to the divorce and the payment of alimony. Ultimately, whether Lynn resigned herself to the situation or not, she accepted the divorce. True to her nature, she didn't offer a single apology until the very end. Later, through a lawyer, Ricky filed for divorce and alimony. Tom and I proceeded with the dissolution of the adoption. Lynn seemed resigned, no longer displaying her usual bravado. How would she manage her life after losing everything? It was a mystery only she could solve. Even after dissolving the adoption, Lynn came to our house a few times asking for money, but we turned her away, now being strangers. Her sad face was noticeable, but we no longer had to care. Over time, my feelings for her had completely vanished. And it seemed Tom felt the same. Considering how kind Tom is, I thought he might still care for Lynn even after dissolving the adoption. However, he stopped mentioning Lynn's name entirely. That alone made it clear just how angry Tom must be. A year has passed since then. Tom and I are enjoying a peaceful life, possibly because we've cut ties with Lynn. I can't help but think that being able to live such a happy life now is surely because we've ceased all contact with Lynn. In the end, by consistently turning her away, Lynn stopped coming to our house. We don't know where she is or what she's doing. Yet, the fact that I'm not worried at all is proof that my feelings have completely cooled off. Lately, our joy has been traveling together. Making up for the time lost to Lynn's drama, we cherish our moments together. We're even planning our next trip. Where will we go next? Maybe going abroad. With Tom, any destination promises joy. I thought this while flipping through a travel magazine nearby.